Hello, I'm Bob Buscemi. I am the Interim Community Development Director and City Architect for Milton. We're going to continue our video series on different land uses within Milton. Today's series is going to be on the AG-1 focus area. This video will concentrate on the AG-1 focus area, specifically the centralized Milton and Birmingham character areas. When driving through Milton, there is very little difference really between these character areas. We are seeing more development, especially single-family dwellings, subdivisions, in the Birmingham character area. Remember, Birmingham Crossroads has its own master plan and regulations. The southeast quadrant is currently under construction. Okay, so as you can see, these character areas take up most of the physical land area of the city. This slide is very interesting as it shows current subdivisions. You can see them in the highlighted area. As you can see, they are splatted throughout these character areas. And what is interesting, though, is I think what is making Milton so special and desirable is the spacing of these neighborhoods. There's still a lot of non-neighborhood lots between these subdivisions. And this visual, driving through Milton, has the appearance of a very rural, bucolic-like experience. If these gaps, if we could term them gaps, between these build-out and subdivisions start to connect to one another, then we will end up with pretty much what they call the textbook definition of sprawl. And that's really when you're driving through a street and you just see subdivision after subdivision after subdivision, and they're all connecting. Remember, most of the development traditionally occurs in growth in cities with an urban core, and it's usually in concentric rings. You see the core, then you see a ring of suburbs, and then you see the outer ring is the rural farmland. But the way the city of Milton's actually been developed, it's kind of, Milton's growth has been really kind of unique. That our growth has occurred with this type of pattern. And the uniqueness is the gaps between these subdivisions. It is making Milton very special, very desirable, and it's actually resulting in very high property values throughout Milton. This slide is just some stats. I think everyone knows these, but as a refresher, I just want to kind of get through this. A typical lot size minimum on a paved road, everybody knows, is 1 acre, and it's reinforced by the septic rules of Fulton County. And a minimum lot size on an unpaved road would be 3 acres. Now, all subdivisions are subject to the rural viewshed requirements. And what that requirement does is it says for the first 60 feet in depth, you have an undisturbed area, and it's measured along the right-of-way. So this really helps preserve the existing landscape along our city roads. Now, this rural viewshed really applies to any new subdivision that gets created. Any building built along a city road, if the site abuts a city street, is also subject to architectural review. That's any building that's built along a city road. And this has been critical in the preservation of our built environment. It really is been very advantageous. We're creating a very Milton-esque style of architecture and buildings, and I think it's enhancing the look and feel as you're driving through Milton. There's been a lot of concern to try to preserve large lots. And and that's like on the bottom of the slide, we're saying encouraging large lots. So that with the concern of trying to preserve the large lots and or these gaps of unbuilt between subdivisions, we've had some suggestions that, from various folks, and they've said, look, maybe we could bring this forth to and bring to the attention of the CPAC members of how to address some of these concerns and how do we preserve these areas. And some of those, from a land development use, would be the following. We would increase the minimum lot frontage of a lot from 100 to 150 feet on main roads. And the other real big one would be to eliminate flag lots. So we further looked into the flag lots, and we have some other illustrations on the next slide, but just to give you a quick summation, that when we looked into the flag lot, and we'll describe and show you what it looks like, I just want everybody to know that a lot of other jurisdictions, Alpharetta, Roswell, Sandy Springs, there's been a lot of counties in the state of Georgia who've all eliminated this provision, because what it does is it takes these lots that are like in between these larger subdivisions and prevents them from really being built out to a higher density. And we're seeing a lot of minor plot subdivisions coming in. So here's an example of an existing lot. Doesn't have a whole lot of road frontage, but it has almost 5 acres of land. Currently has one house on it with a accessory storage or barn. And it's very typical of a lot that's sort of in between subdivisions. And when we look at these lots, all of a sudden we say, geez, right now this lot is really holding one dwelling unit. But with the flag lot provision, let's go to the next slide. You could see with the flag lot provision that the flag lot regulations now allow up to 3 dwelling units on the same track, all of which have very little frontage along Hopewell Road, but it's allowing more density of development on the tracks. So as a result, we're increasing densities. It is advantageous for a landowner because he'll say, well, look, I can get some subdivision and I could do it and get some more building and some value out of the sale. But on the same token, we're eliminating all our 3 to 5 acre lots that traditionally would look like mini horse farms or just large lots visually, give a nice connection and openness to Milton. And now we're going to end up with 3 lots. And again, this is just something that I think other jurisdictions, other surrounding sister cities have all implemented the elimination of this provision. And the board could really look at whether or not they feel that this should be eliminated. It certainly can be something we put on a worksheet that says, look, we need staff to further investigate. So it's just an idea that we'd like CPAC to take a look at. All right, this slide shows that we are sensitive to historical structures in these areas. This happens to be the Thomas Bird House. It's actually a city-owned building. It's probably, I think, the oldest structure in North Fulton. It was built in the 1800s. The city acquired this property and did a renovation and a restoration to the structure, and now it houses our senior services group, North Fulton Senior Services, and I think that was a nice use for it. It shows that we can be sensitive to the senior population, and we also went ahead and did a lot of historic marker signs, and that's an example on the left of one of those signs. And you'll see those signs splattered around Milton on areas and structures that we thought had value in history. And the historical board went ahead and put together the verbiage and the locations of these, and they did a lot of work, and I think it came out real nice. So we're trying to maintain some of our historical character as well. So let's start looking at some of the land uses. So when you say AG-1, most people think, okay, AG-1 is residential zoning, you know, 1 house per acre, and that's how they look at it. But there's several different options that you can do in AG-1 if you're a landowner. One is, of course, civic uses, which would be, you know, like fire stations and parks, and we allow that. And we have quite a bit of those in the city. Other uses by right would be a winery, so you can do that as of right. Vet clinics and kennels. The equestrian tack shops or equestrian facilities are also in there. The reason that we highlighted the vet clinic and kennel in red is because I wanted the CPAC to understand that we are getting small animal vet clinics. We'd like to encourage a large animal vet clinic. So small animal would be cats and dogs, and large animals would be, you know, like horses. And kennels, of course, we do have many kennels in the city of Milton, and we wanted CPAC to look at that as well to try to figure if they needed any modifications on minimum land area or minimum setbacks. Just by the most neighbors end up saying, geez, that the noise from the animals is very disturbing. So it's just something to bring up as a topic and look at. And then other uses that are permitted by use permit would be a landscape business, rural event facilities, like a special event facility, bed and breakfast, which we don't have too many of, but we'd like to see more. Alternative senior housing, that's like when you have 4 or 5 folks living together, and we might see more of that occur now that the aging population is booming. We might see some more of that. Churches and schools, I highlighted in red, because again, it allows churches or places of religious institutions. It allows this, but mostly when churches or schools come in, we get a lot of big public outcry saying we don't really want them. They generate a lot of traffic. They generate a lot of noise. So it's just something that I highlighted because we're not really seeing a lot of it. And when they do come in, there's a lot of opposition generally from the general community. So I'd like CPAC to take a look at those and see if there's further regulation that might need to be applied to those or the elimination of. So next slide shows the tree canopy ordinance. This is something that was adopted in 2018, 2020. We went from a density-based to a canopy-based. I think it's been demonstrating to be very successful, and most developers are better understanding it at this point. We've recently adopted some incentive so that we said, okay, if you're on a large lot, you only need 25% canopy coverage, opposed to 57% for a 1 acre lot. So again, it's just an incentive to try to get larger lots and give some relief to those who decide to keep their lots large or create large lots. All right, this one just shows the green space bond. The city did go around and acquire properties. I think it's a nice illustration of how the properties were purchased and how they were distributed throughout the city. They didn't just condense it in one area of the city. They really tried to push it around. There was a MDAC board that really worked hard on this, and I think we had some success. I just wanted to make sure CPAC understood that these are all green space areas. This one just shows horse farms, established horse farms in Milton that are larger scale. And I just wanted to show it because it kind of shows the distribution of the horse farm. And you can see they're kind of distributed somewhat evenly around the city. So that it's not like they're all up in the northern and western section, and then the other areas are dense. So again, this kind of distribution of farms, I think, is what is making our roadways so picturesque as you're driving through them, and giving Milton its character. Okay, so let's talk about some of the completed items that we did, so you know where we are. We did do the rural Milton overlay and got that approved, and as such, we got large lot incentives. So what a large lot incentive does is says, look, if you want to develop lots that are 3 acres or greater, we're going to give you a lot of incentives for it. We're going to give you different regulations. You don't have to follow just the harsh subdivision regs. You could actually have some relief. And we're actually seeing quite a bit of a nice response from this by the development community and landowners. And the more staff works with them individually, development by development, people are starting to see the advantage of this, and they're starting to implement it. So again, whenever we do anything at the CPAC level, and then it goes into the comp plan, and then gets codified into a code, and then you have to give the development community or industry, so to speak, some time to digest it, understand it, and kind of get the word out. So it does ripple. It does take a little time, and we've done this, and we're really seeing a nice response. Detention pond design is to enhance all the detention ponds and make them like much more pictorial and into parks. The elimination of sidewalk requirements, except near schools and parks. So for a certain distance, like quarter mile around a school or a park, they require sidewalks. But if you drive through Milton, you'll see some communities with like sidewalks that come out. We call them sidewalks to nowhere. They kind of come out and then they just end, and there is no other connection. And we've eliminated the requirement to have those sidewalks come out to the public roadway, right of way. So now the entrances to subdivisions are much more organic, much more rural. The landscaping is rural. We've eliminated all these large walls and heights of walls, and we've redone the signage for a subdivision entrance. So we're trying to keep that whole subdivision entrance and rural view shed along the city street being something that looks much more rural and integrated. So that's then the historic markers we spoke about, that we've put them around, and I think that's really trying to show some nice character in the city. We tiered the landscape designs in the roundabouts, so as the roundabouts get to more rural areas, the landscaping is reflecting that, and in the more dense urbanized areas like Crabapple and Deerfield, the landscaping is reflecting a much more urbanized look. Road guardrails. On low volume roads, we're putting in wood guardrails. On high volume roads, we're starting to paint the guardrails maybe a darker color so that they fade into the landscape and they look more rural. The trail plan, of course, is integrated and has been passed. The tree canopy ordinance we spoke about, that passed. Impact fees was passed, and the nice part of that is that the impact fee that's collected on each and every dwelling unit then goes, a substantial portion of that really goes to park development. So that funds all new parks. There's a small amount that goes for roads, police, and fire. The park master plan is out there. It's been approved, and we've been following the park master plan as well. Architectural design compliance is out there, and it's been very successful. We also have a TDR program, which is the transfer of development rights. So if you want to develop somewhere in a dense urbanized area, let's say is Deerfield or Crabapple, you can buy density, and somebody in the more rural areas of these focus areas can actually sell their density to somebody, and then we preserve these open spaces. Okay, this one here is just potential action items. So what we want to look at here is, Incentives for large lots, again, or hobby farms. We'd like to call them hobby farms. We'd love to see more hobby farms in Milton. Tax incentives for these types of farms, I think, is important right now. Fulton County has a CUVA, which, if you have 10 acres or more, you can get some tax relief. We'd like to see if we can work with the county or with the city to try to maintain some sort of a tax incentive for farms so that they can stay in existence. Signage, branding, all of that is very important to maintain the character areas. It would be the same thing with location of accessory dwelling units for farms and the placement of accessory structures for farms. We're trying to work on those as text amendments to see if when you have a farm, can you get some relief on an accessory structure and its location? The same thing with an accessory dwelling unit on a farm, either for farm help or aging parents or things of that nature where people want to feel like, look, I have a 30-acre farm. I'd like to be able to put some accessory dwelling unit on it for either help or family members. Noise associated with fireworks, again, is very important to think about and raise as an issue because I think it affects most of the equestrian community. Elimination of flag lots, we went over. Increase the minimum frontage of a lot on a main road from 100 to 150. We did talk about that. Coordination with Fulton County Schools, using as recreation fields. We really have done this with MOAs, memorandums of agreements with Fulton County. With COVID, that has changed a little bit, and the city has shifted to a lot of co-usage with private schools. So a lot of that has been addressed. Road speeds is very important. The city's looking at studying all the road speeds because increased road speeds does affect equestrian uses. And if we're trying to get equestrian or hobby farms, road speeds are very important. Internet access, getting internet access to these large farms, it's very expensive to people spending, $10,000-$15,000 just getting a cable brought to their house because they have a large setback. And Birmingham Park as an equestrian orientation, I think we should look at the parks plan again and just say, geez, if we want to maintain Birmingham Park as an equestrian center, what do we need to do? And it might just mean to take out some of the uses that are in the parks plan that was approved to kind of reinforce the fact that we want more equestrian uses on Birmingham Park. It is a 200-acre park, so it's a nice park that we have. Eliminate churches and schools, or if we don't eliminate them, just come up with new regulations and say, well, geez, what is really so objectionable about having a school? Well, if it's parking and lights and noise and all sorts, maybe we need to look at that more carefully from a CPAC perspective. And these are the items that we came up with. And of course, CPAC is always, it is just like a sort of a springboard to spark ideas and come up with other ideas that the committee and the members might say, geez, as a result of this, we're thinking of other ideas and something new and fresh. And we welcome all of those ideas during our meetings with CPAC. So I'd like to just thank you all again for viewing this presentation and look forward to seeing you on the 28th. Thank you.